Hey everybody, welcome to the Ronline Report. Today's guest is your newest overall USA Championships winner, Shane Stewart from California. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Good. Now, before we get into your life story, which I always like to start things off with, that's a very prestigious title. I was at a lot of the USAs over the years. I saw people like Flex Wheeler win, Chris Cormier, Craig Titus, Melvin Anthony, Dennis James. We all know Phil Heath is a USA champion, and he's done okay for himself. So first off, winning that title, how did you feel? What did it mean to you when you stood on that stage, the last man standing, as my buddy Sean Ray likes to say, at the USA?
Well, I mean, it was a huge honor. It's just, I've been fighting that show for the last 4 years, trying to make my way to the top, and it's a huge honor to get that. To win the overall. That was probably the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
And just to have the title is pretty awesome.
Now, I'm a little confused because I thought top two class winners in the open divisions, well, it's all open, turn pro at USA, but it's only the class winners. Is that right?
It's men's bodybuilding is the only one that does first place only.
we're the ones that started all this too.
I know.
Yeah, because I'm wondering, why weren't you a pro last year when Derek won? But now you just explained it. Okay. All right. So let's get back to the beginning. What were you into as a kid? Were you athletic? Were you someone we would have looked at and said, this guy's going to be a bodybuilder someday?
I was pretty small. I didn't really eat a lot. I wouldn't say ever would have thought I'd be a bodybuilder. I always wanted to, as a young kid. As you grow up, you're always looking at the muscle man, and you're always looking, you want to get bigger.
Well, let me interrupt, because I'm not sure. How old are you, Shane?
I'm 39.
39. So when you were looking at the magazines as a kid, who were the guys that got your attention and you said, damn, I'd love to look like that guy someday?
Oh, I can't remember the names back in the day, but of course, it's always Arnold, Yeah. Arnold, you can't miss that. And I remember watching The Incredible Hulk, with Lou Ferrigno. Yeah. That was a big-time show when I was growing up. But that was it, those two always like, oh, you want to get big. But obviously back in the day, there was no internet, and it was basically do it on your own. And I had no idea what I was doing, so I didn't really make it that far before I joined the military is when I really started getting into lifting.
So did you join the Air Force right at 18, or how old were you?
I was 19. 19,
okay. And I watched another interview with you. It was, I'm still trying to sort of get all the answers. What made you choose the Air Force branch in particular? What made you choose the military?
Well, it was, my dad and my uncle were in the Air Force, and they told me, if you join anything, join the Air Force. It's a smart way to go. And then when I was 18, my mom was wanting to pay for my college, and, I was kind of in that party. I think I want to party a little bit. I don't know if I could to handle that type of responsibility. I didn't want to blow all our money. Right. So I was like, look, I can go join the Air Force. I get free college, and I have some direction in my life, So it kind of was two things that helped me do is find a direction and also pay for college. So.
You're a good guy, because, my kids, they didn't care how much money of mine they wasted going to college. Went for a year or quit, 2 years, quit. Anyway.
Yeah.
But, and also, so you went voluntarily, because like I had a brother that a judge when he was 17 said it's either this or you're going to jail. I think he was 18. So, but you weren't in that situation.
No, I could have been in that category if I would have stayed around a little longer. But getting out of where I was at was a good idea.
Cool, man. Yeah, I mean I've seen it turn so many people's lives. Young guys I've known who came out very different people. Do you think it immediately turned you into a different type of person with the discipline and the regimen?
Oh, for sure. The discipline and the regimen, and they tell you what to do and you just do it. And it was just like I said, that gave me the direction that I've gone in. Had I not found the military, I would definitely not be sitting here right now. It'd be a way different scenario.
Yeah, I don't want to make this a recruitment commercial or anything like that, but would you recommend, the armed forces for young guys out there watching this that really not sure what they want to do with themselves?
Of course. Even if they just get in and get their 4 years, get their GI Bill, and then they can do college. They have plenty of opportunities. If you go in the Air Force, most of the jobs are going to relate to something on the outside sector that's going to pay you large sums of money. So anything, even doing stuff in the Army, you're going to have just way better knowledge how to deal with people, way better life experience.
Yeah, I've heard about the Air Force in that regard, that electronics, there's a lot of job designations where you become very highly trained in electronics, computer science, and those obviously would translate to a pretty decent job once you're out of the Air Force. I'm jumping ahead here, but how cooperative? I know you just turned pro, so it's not a case of having to try to juggle a pro bodybuilding career with the Air Force, but were they cooperative with you as far as trying to be a bodybuilder, or did you have to really struggle to make the training and the eating match what you were doing for your job in the Air Force?
Well, I've been in for 20 years now, so I'm right on the cusp of being able to retire, and I'm in a job where I'm basically a manager. I don't really have to do too much manual labor, actually no manual labor at all. So it's really easy for me to get my meals in. It's really easy to get my gym time in before. I've basically done everything the same since I started lifting. It's on my own time, basically. I lift, prep my food, and then I just make sure I have time to eat at work. But there's really no, besides the fact getting leave so I could go to the competitions, that's about all that they can really set aside for me.
Yeah, because I'm sure you're familiar with David Henry, the 212 legend. Basically, he is a legend. And I remember at times he was so, I don't want to say upset, but at times apparently they weren't always cooperative with him as far as time off and leave. And he didn't even want to mention in his column at times that he was in the Air Force because he didn't want to give them any credit. He would just say, I work for the Department of Defense. Let's leave it at that. But you're almost out. How much time do you have left?
Well, I got a service commitment of 2 years left, so I can retire at 22. Had I not transferred my GI Bill to my daughter, then I would have already been able to retire. But I got 2 more years. It's not a big deal. The time flies, and I love what I do right now. So it's not anything that's going to break my heart if I got to stay a few extra years.
That's news to me that you can transfer your GI Bill to a child. That's great.
Yeah, and it's basically on a percentage. So I have my name and her name. So if she gets a scholarship, plus we're doing college funds for her. If all that and she doesn't even need it, I can still use it for myself and go to a trade school, maybe do machining or something, get my knowledge up well-rounded. And
she's Tegan is your daughter's name, right? Tegan?
Correct. Yeah.
How old is she now?
She's 7.
7. I mean, that's commendable that you already have her college basically taken care of, right?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know too many parents out there who could say the same.
Yeah.
It's expensive. Sorry. Let's talk about you got into bodybuilding, basically training after basic training, which I was actually shocked in the other interview when you said in basic a lot of the underweight guys come out chubbier or they gain weight and the overweight guys lose weight. I mean, I always assumed the rigorous basic training regimen, running your ass around all damn day and night for 12 weeks, 16 weeks?
Air Force at the time was 6 weeks.
Oh, 6 weeks. Okay.
I think they might have bumped it up to 8.
And you actually gained weight because it was the first time you had been eating that consistently?
Yeah, I weighed like 125. I worked at a cold storage facility and maybe ate like 2 meals a day, maybe 3, but they'd be super small.
Yeah.
And then when I got there, I guess I found out I was a little nervous eater. When they get in your face and they push you, when it's time to eat, I could devour some food at that point.
Wow. Okay. And how tall are you, Shane? I'm just curious.
I'm about 5'5.5".
5'5.5". So you're about 125, 122, 125, and then you bulked up during a basic to like 155.
Yep.
Yeah, and bulked up would be the correct word because some of it had to be muscle, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, it was a little bit of muscle, but I looked a little chubby, so that's when I actually started lifting weights. That's what got me to just go in. Of course, I didn't know what I was doing. I was doing every single machine in the facility, but I eventually found workout partners that knew a little bit more than me, and then just through the years kept finding new workout partners that just kept building me up.
So from the beginning, did you sort of have an idea that eventually I'd like to be a bodybuilder, or did that take years to really get to that point mentally?
It took a few years because I was training martial arts for years. I think I had gotten up to like 160 pounds, somewhere in there, and I really wanted to be really competitive, because when at my first base, I met a bodybuilder who was he was like 5'4", 240 pounds,
wow,
just monster basketballs for calves.
Wow.
And like he just said, "Hey man, I think you should do this bodybuilding comp," and he showed me everything, tried to show me poses, told me what to eat, and I did my first show, and then after that I was hooked. So that's when I really started bodybuilding. That was in 2001.
Okay, so that was 18 years, 17 years ago. But just to back up for a minute, because I know there's a lot of guys out there who also were into martial arts. What was your martial arts style, and how far did you take it?
I originally started out in Taekwondo when I was like 13 or so, and then switched over to Goju Karate, where I got my black belt after like 4 years. And then when I joined the Air Force, I started working out at this place in Little Rock called Danny Dream's Taekwondo Plus. I can't remember the exact name, but he did Taekwondo, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, and Brazilian style jiu-jitsu. So it's like an MMA style.
Okay. And
I did that for a few years, and then I kind of wanted to progress my bodybuilding more than my MMA. So.
Okay. So I saw you were stationed in Osaka, Japan for 3 years, right?
Kadena.
Kadena, okay. Cause
it's in Okinawa.
Oh, Okinawa. I mean, so were you already past martial arts at that point?
Yeah, I was pretty much on to trying to become a better bodybuilder at that point, really. But I did train with a few guys that were getting ready for grappling fights and stuff like that, but nothing intense. It was only here and there.
I mean, that seems like that'd be the cool place to advance your martial arts, Okinawa. That was Mr. Mr. Miyagi's place, I believe.
Right. Well, that's where Goju Karate's from, is Okinawa, Japan. So, I got my black belt in that art. So that was kind of the original reason why I wanted to go there.
Oh wow, okay, yeah. I mean, that would have been the place, but you're already a meathead by then. So,
right. Yep.
So let's go back to your first contest. A lot of guys, it's one of two things I think happens in most cases. Either they love it, or they say, "Well, that was interesting, but I don't necessarily want to do that ever again." What was it about your experience at your first show that you knew this was something you want to keep doing?
Well, I knew I didn't have any knowledge whatsoever, and to be able to place, I placed second. Obviously, it was in the beginners division, but I placed second. And once I seen some pictures of my posing, I mean, I could have, if I had my posing been a little more crisp, I might have been able to pull off the win. But it was just basically like, oh, this is kind of cool. And I like trying to work and develop my body. And the fact that I placed second was just, kind of like maybe I can do it. Maybe I'm good at it. So we'll just give it a try and see what happens.
How early on at the contest did anybody really take notice and said, you got some really good potential, the structure, the muscle shape? Because usually those things are, I saw on your Facebook, you have pictures from your first show, and somebody with an eye can spot the potential that was there. You just needed to obviously get a lot bigger from that point.
Right.
When did you first hear that from someone that, Shane, you could be good at this. You gotta keep doing this?
I don't know if I ever heard anyone tell me that. I just kept competing, and my goal was always just to improve each time, try to look better than I did the contest before or the year before. Usually I did one contest a year. Sometimes I did two, but I always just as long as I looked better than I did before, I didn't care if someone beat me, just as long as I improved myself.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it never really bothered me if I didn't win. It was never like, oh, I have to win or I'm going to quit. So
for you, it was always what we say bodybuilding is supposed to be about, which is self-improvement and beating your previous best. You actually did that. You actually lived what we preach all the time.
Right.
So powerlifting, I saw that you did some powerlifting, some meets. I like to read the numbers because a lot of guys out there, they love to hear the numbers. So
Right.
you had one meet, and correct me if I have any of this wrong. Squat was 611, bench press 465, deadlift 633 for a 1706 total, and this was as a 198 pounder class.
I chose not to drop the extra 3 pounds. I stayed at 200 pounds.
Okay.
So I stayed in the 220 class, but
Wow.
I was at 200 pounds, and I just didn't want to try to, dehydrate myself because I've had bad shows where I've lost a lot of poundage. I just wanted to have a good total. I wanted to break into the 1,700 pounds.
So did you do the powerlifting just because you were kind of interested in it? Was it a hobby, or because very few people do both bodybuilding and powerlifting at the same time and try to be competitive in both? Were you a competitive powerlifter for a while, or how did this all fit in?
Yeah, I usually did one powerlifting meet and one bodybuilding meet every year.
Okay.
So plus I like to lift heavy anyway, so most of my training is powerlifting style. I normally keep it kind of heavy, and I'll on the what I call the bodybuilding lifts, the biceps and all the fancy stuff is I treat it as a bodybuilding movement, and I do sometimes I'll go heavy, but most of the time I'll do high volume.
Okay. So
on
how low will you go for the reps on some of the big compound lifts in your heaviest training?
I usually will go up as heavy up to like 3, sometimes a single rep, and then I'll drop back down and then do reps after I've hit my heaviest set, just because I like to stress the muscle to the maximum extent. And
people have said that gives the muscle a different look, a density when you're doing the super heavy. It's also risk to benefit ratio. It can be pretty dangerous for some people. Have you been okay injury wise? Have you ever hurt anything?
I've never had any major injuries.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on something here. Yeah, no, I've never really gotten that strong that fast, so I think my tendons have been able to keep up with my muscle and strength gains. Yeah. But I did this year. I did decide to leave out the powerlifting meet to focus on bodybuilding because I was afraid that if I try to go for that 1,750 or 1,800 pound total, there could be something that happens, and I don't want to destroy because I think I'm a little better at bodybuilding than I am powerlifting. If I see guys on Instagram my weight just doing like 700, 800 pound deadlifts and 600 and 800 pound squats, so I'm like, okay, well, let me go with the bodybuilding here.
Well, it's the guys that do both. Very few people do both of them at the highest level. There's been powerlifters who do bodybuilding, and they don't look very good. You can tell that they're more suited for strength, the joints and the structure and everything, and vice versa. A lot of bodybuilders are just never going to be that strong because they got hips like this and wrists like that and knees like that, so they're not. But so it's commendable that you're able to do pretty well in both. In fact, you just posted on. Let's get your Instagram out for everybody. It's IFBB_pro_Shane_Stewart. You just posted today a deadlift 545 for a triple. So clearly you're getting your strength back already. It's only been like 9 days since you turned pro. 10 days? Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the USA. It was your 4th year in a row, and you did very steady progression. So first year would have been 15, 16, 17. 2016, I guess, was your first year. Mm-hmm. You didn't place, didn't make top 15. Came back the next year, 11th place. Then last year, obviously, it was you and Lunsford battling out. Got edged out by Lunsford, which is nothing to be ashamed of.
Right.
He's a damn good bodybuilder. And then you won it this year. So the first year you did it, I've seen so many guys who go to the national level and either they're not ready for it or whatever the case, that's it. When they don't make the cut, you never see them again. Mm-hmm. They either get discouraged or people tell them this isn't for you. So what was your experience like the first time you did USA and you didn't make the cut? Were you really discouraged, or you just said, I got to work much harder?
It was actually, it actually made me want to work harder because I just looked at all the quality of the guys there that they got called out, and I'm just like, holy smokes, I got to step this up, Like I do a lot of cheats in my diet, I like to, it's hard for me to diet really, really hard.
Yeah.
So that first year was just like eye-opening, like you're going to have to cut back and actually really, dial the diet in. So then the next year I came back, cleaned it up a little more. Obviously it wasn't enough, but I got to, 11th place. And then I seen who my coach is now, Shane. I seen him there and I was like, hey, I want to come with you to be my coach. And he was like, okay. He's like, be ready to battle it out for first place next year. And I was like, I don't really believe everything I hear, but so far everything he has told me has come true. So I definitely trust him.
So you go to these big national shows or pro show, you throw a rock into the audience, you're going to hit like 10 coaches. So you had your share of people there that you could have approached. What made you go to Shane Hughley? Shane, is that his name? Shane?
Yeah, Hughley. Yeah.
It's another Shane. Was it that? Was it because he's got the same name as you?
Yeah, no. I knew him from Utah, so I was stationed in Utah after Kadena, and I used to compete there, did my own diets and all that stuff, and I always kept my eye on him. I kept seeing every year. I follow him on Facebook. His guy's just getting better and better and better and just, improving so much. And I'm like looking at how lean they are, and I'd never been there before, so I'm like, I want to be that lean. So I was like, hey, I want to be on the team.
Off the top of your head, who are some names I might recognize that Shane also coaches or has coached?
Seth. I'd have to look at his Instagram.
Seth Shaw, that won the North American?
I think so. His classic physique. I think he.
Different guy.
No. He was a bodybuilder.
Okay.
He got his pro card.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Seth that won the tall blonde guy won North American. I just did. Was it Toronto? I just saw him. Chicago. I saw him compete recently. Yeah, he looks really good. So
yeah,
you didn't have a coach up until Shane which was less than 2 years ago, right? You were on.
Right.
You did your preps all on your own.
I just tried everything on my own, but that wasn't working too good.
Yeah, I mean, what changed? What did you learn? What did Shane Hughley have you start doing more consistently or change that really made the big difference? Because obviously your condition was awesome this time.
I think it was just the having someone to make sure I didn't freak out the last few weeks.
Yeah.
That's normally where everything falls apart, because I would look great, and then the last few weeks I would just do something stupid, eat something I shouldn't eat. So, the last few weeks is really where I think he was able to keep me on track, and I think that's where I normally crashed and burned, was that last few week, the peak week and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the story of every competitor will show at the show. If they bomb, they'll be quick to show you a picture. This is me a week ago. This is me 2 weeks ago. Why didn't you just keep doing whatever you were doing? You look great.
Yeah,
you look
exactly.
like a water buffalo last night on stage. So, oh man. So what else? When you turn pro, obviously the temptation would have been there for Tampa Pro a week, which was just a week away, and Lunsford and Jacob Wilson had both successfully jumped right from USA to Tampa last year. And I heard you in the other interview saying, you want to be closer to like 210, 212 before you do that. But realistically, a lot of the guys in that show, I was just at Tampa. It was a big 212 lineup, but I don't want to make you kick yourself or anything, but I think you would have done pretty well. I mean, you have all the shape and the condition that they would have been looking for.
I think I would have done well, but I don't think I would have done what Lunsford did. I think I needed to be a little more, I need a little more lat width and maybe a little more size on my arms, and then I think I would be a little more competitive. Plus, my original was to follow exactly what Lunsford did, just because it was so eye-opening. Like, I've never thought I could jump on the Olympia stage until I seen him up there, like a month and a half after we stood side by side. So I was like, holy crap, like maybe I could take this further. Before it was just like, I just wanted to compete at a national level and see how I did. Now it's like, oh, maybe I can keep going. So that's definitely inspired me to try to go further.
Now, was 2016 or 2015 was that your first time you did the national level?
Yeah, I think it was the 2016.
16, 17, 18. No, would have been 15,
Would have
right?
been
15,
15,
16,
15,
17.
yeah, 15.
And you've been competing at that point for almost a dozen years or more, right? I'm bad at math. You know, it's almost epidemic now that guys start training and they want to turn pro like tomorrow. You know, how were you that patient? How did you know that you needed more time and you needed to be at a certain level before you got up there and could do respectable?
Um, it was more. I just enjoyed doing it. You know, I wasn't trying to make a career out of bodybuilding. I had the Air Force that, anytime we can deploy. So there had been times where I'm going to compete, and then you got deployed to Iraq, so I couldn't do a competition. So it was just basically something fun on the side that I was okay at. That I did good at regional shows, and then I just wanted to see what I could do in the national, on the national stage.
Now, were you deployed to Iraq at one point?
Yeah, I was in Iraq for like 6 months.
Okay. Was that the only time you've been over to the Middle East?
No, I've been there at least one other time back a long time ago. It was back in like 2002.
Okay. So things were pretty hot and heavy back at that point, I recall. Yeah. I mean, I won't ask you to go too much into detail, but were you you were on a base inland, with the other Marines and Army and all that at the time?
We were on a little tent city. There was only tents. That was nothing. We were on an allied base, but we were off in our own little area. But in Iraq, I was on the Army base in Iraq when I went there for 6 months.
Good. They had some pretty elaborate setups for gyms that the guys put together over there that I've seen pictures and videos of. What was training like when you were over there?
Oh, it was hot.
Yeah.
It's really hot. It was like a blow dryer when you're outside. But it was fine. I've always been able, if I have a squat rack, you can pretty much get everything done. You get your squats. You can deadlift anywhere. As long as you have a bench, you can, work all your compound movements. So we've always had pretty good setups, some machines, but mostly free weights whenever I've been deployed.
You grew up in Arkansas, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're no stranger to heat. The summers there are pretty unbearable, I'm sure. But
yeah, they're humid.
How would you compare the dry heat of, what did it get up to there, like 120, 130 degrees over in Iraq in the summer?
Yeah, when I was there, it got up to about 120.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Oh, that's disgusting.
But it was dry. It was dry heat, except that the first place I went to was in the Gulf of Oman, and it was way more humid than Arkansas. It was just like you walk outside and you're just pouring sweat, and you didn't do anything. Right after you take a shower, it's like that. You walk out of the shower tent and boosh.
I mean, I've heard that when it's the guys were talking about when it's that kind of heat, it would take 100 cups of water a day just to stay normally hydrated, which I don't know how many gallons it is. It's probably like 4 gallons of water, something ridiculous. But that's, thank you for your service. Those conditions sound just, oh my God. I don't care if it's dry heat. An oven is dry heat too.
Yeah.
Wouldn't want to be in one. So tell me about, you have a girlfriend and you have a 7-year-old daughter and you just finished up a prep. How do you balance? It's a very selfish sport, as any of us who've competed know, especially the last final weeks. It's all about your next meal, your next cardio session, your training, and no low carbs and no carbs. You're not the most fun person to be around. How did you manage not to be a terrible boyfriend and father in the final weeks of a prep like that when you got into that spectacular condition that you did?
Oh, I mean, it was hard. I definitely was, a little short. Didn't have a lot of energy, especially the last week. I could barely walk because I was doing 2 hours of cardio on the Stairmaster, and it was first thing when I woke up, fasted, and then when I got off work at midnight, I jumped on the Stairmaster for another hour. So yeah, it it's tough, you know, especially when you have zero energy and then they're wanting to do something. You're just like, I can barely walk. Like, let me just sit here.
Did you feel like that guilty thing where you feel like you have to make it up to them after the show by like being extra nice and doing a lot of nice things for them?
No, I'm not a total asshole when I, you know, I'm a pretty calm person, so it takes a lot to really get me really mad. But you know, I was definitely a little short that last week. I just didn't have the energy to do anything. But yeah, of course, like now we're, you know, obviously going to try to spend more time together. I still do my 2-hour weight training sessions, but obviously there's not going to be any cardio right now. I can rest there in that aspect. But we started doing meal preps together, which is awesome. You know, she wanted to start eating healthy, so I was like, awesome. That makes it better for me because now we can meal prep together and really make some decent meals for this off season. Hopefully, pump me up to like 230 in the off season.
So, were you cooking all your own food up to this point?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Nice. I mean, I often tell people training's fun. It's the eating, it's the cooking, and the eating, and that's the part that sucks. So yeah, I'm glad you got some help now. But so you won't be in the Olympia this year, but I want to get your thoughts on it because I'm sure you follow it and you follow Derek and Flex and Jose. So this is the last year for Flex as an open. Sorry, as a 212. It's the last year for Jose. Period. He's retiring. I erroneously reported that Dave Henry's retiring. He is not. He's going to keep going. But are you going to the Olympia? What are you looking forward to seeing this year in the 212?
I'm looking forward to seeing how Derek does. You know, I hope he does well, and then I'm hoping that I can qualify for the Olympia next year, and then to see. I mean, just to be on the Olympia stage is just a dream come true. To say, hey, I made it to the Olympia. That's not many people get there, so. That'll be the first step. If I can make it to the Olympia, see how I do, and then see if it's something I want to try again. You know, I'll be 40 next year, so you know, I don't know.
Still a kid, but
yeah, still a kid.
But so you said you were probably going to do the Tampa next year for your pro debut.
Yep.
So that's a bold thing because that's your last chance to qualify for the Olympia. Whereas if you did something a little earlier, you still would have, theoretically a chance to either win something or get enough points. But you're doing the all your eggs in one basket thing.
I'm going all in. If I got a full year, I feel like I can make the improvements, and if I can come in the same conditioning, which I probably can, because during my diet I still, my coach had me on small cheats, but my small cheat was like 3,000 calories. So
in one meal? Yeah,
one meal.
What kind of meal is 3,000 calories? I got to hear this.
I would always go to BJ's Brew House and get their big Brew House burger with brisket on top, and the fries. So it was the burger alone was 1,600 calories, and then the fries, and then dessert.
Oh boy! Wow, you weren't kidding around. You went all out. But I mean, I'm just curious because a lot of people will report like the next day they've dropped weight, they look better, but they're actually tighter and stuff. Do you have that experience from these kind of cheat meals?
I didn't really notice any difference when I ate that much. I looked about the same. I didn't drop any weight, or I will say I did gain weight. Normally I'd be about 5 pounds heavier, morning weight, and then by the end of the week, by the end of the next week, I'd be back down to about where I was supposed to be.
Okay. So did Shane have you, some coaches will have you ready exactly when you need to be ready at the show. Others will have you ready like a couple weeks out and then sort of try to dial you in. What was the strategy that you guys used for this USA?
We just wanted to peak right on time. So about 8 weeks out, I could have made weight at 8 weeks out. So, but I was doing keto. I was losing weight too fast. I told him, look, I'm losing weight fast. What are we going to do? He had me throw carbs back in. And then I kind of stabilized at 202 from 8 to about 2 weeks out, and then we pumped up the cardio, cut out carbs, and just went crazy the last 2 weeks. And it definitely worked. We peaked right when we needed to.
Okay. Keto is something a lot of people like to talk about. What was your experience with it? Would you do keto again, or is it something you don't think you'd revisit?
No, I like keto because it helps me kind of fight the carb cravings. When I have carbs,
Yeah.
I want more. You know, it's like whatever happens inside my head's like you get that taste of carbs and you want every other kind of carb that you're not supposed to have. So the keto was able to keep me on the straight and narrow path, but I just lost too much weight too fast. So I like jumping between carb cycling and keto. I think is a good as far as my body's concerned. It works pretty good for me.
Now, were you able to get like good muscle pumps during training when you were on keto?
I never really trained for a pump that often, so
You're a powerlifter.
it all seemed about the same. Obviously, when I was completely cut out the fats and the carbs there for the last week, I definitely couldn't get a pump with no fats or carbs.
That's interesting because, you know, a lot of guys, they don't really care how much they lift, and a lot of guys don't even train that heavy. It's all about the pump. You know, they'll do drop sets, whatever it takes to get a pump. Whereas then there's the other camp like yourself who moves some really big weights, and you said you don't really care. You're not really chasing a pump when you train. Is that right?
Right. Not in 100%. On some of the lifts I do, you know, obviously on biceps you can't go for a 1 rep max unless you want to tear your bicep tendons, you know. So I normally will, you know, go up pretty heavy on a bicep curl, but then immediately, as soon as I hit like a heavy 6, then I'll drop down and just try to pound as many reps as I can and just force as much blood in there. But I can say I didn't really, by doing that method, my arms didn't grow this last year, so I got to try something different. So
you find a magic formula, you got to let me know, dude, because
yeah.
I've been trying since you were in kindergarten to try and get my arms bigger. So okay, that's interesting. So, you know, another thing is when a lot of guys turn pro, they have advisors, they have all these people in their ear saying you got to train this way now, you got to do this. They want them to overhaul and change everything that basically got them to where they are to become a pro. You know, do you have people trying to get you to make radical changes to the way you train or eat or anything like that?
No, I haven't had anybody tell me to train any different. Obviously, I'm going to, you know, add a little bit more of the pump aspect in and see how that works out. But I'm definitely still going to keep lifting heavy. Not so heavy that I, you know, injure myself, but heavy enough to make a change.
So here we are. You've just finished a long prep. Yeah, people are always calling my damn phone too. But where do you go from here? Do you take a little bit of time off of training? Do you eat like a regular person for a little while, or are you right back on the grind?
We took a week off last week. I didn't train at all, and then this week I started back. I'm starting back kind of slow, and then next week I'll see how my body feels and start increasing intensity. But as far as taking a break, I definitely need all the time I can get to gain weight because I've always been a hard gainer. So the faster I can get up to 210, the better, or to 230 in the off-season weight, the better off I'll be to, you know, hopefully it'll be clean muscle and not a lot of fat, because used to I would diet terrible, would just be eat anything and everything I could, and I couldn't even gain fat at some points. So
yeah, I mean, you must hold really good condition. You must have a metabolism that keeps you pretty lean no matter what, because if your highest weight ever was like 220 in the off season and you're competing at like 198, that's pretty close. That's not far at all from contest weight.
I said I maximum, I think I got up to 15% body fat this last off season, and that's eating like trash. Like that's just, you know, this year I'm actually going to do meal preps, and I'm going to try to eat clean, but just eat a lot and see what happens. Hopefully that'll be the key. Because
people get really jealous. Like when Juan Morel put out all his videos and talked about all the crap he eats, I think he'd take that whole Sunday. I'm sure you're familiar with his Sunday ritual of eating like everything in sight from time he wakes up, time he goes to bed. And a lot of people hate on him because, you know, they wish they could eat like that. But it sounds like it's more of a curse than a blessing to really have to struggle to gain weight. Because
Right.
you look at someone like, you look at your contest pictures and videos, you go, oh my God, this guy's a genetic god, and everything must have came really easy for him. But it sounds like you have to really work at the eating more so than anything else.
Yeah, that's always been my biggest problem. You know, even in the beginning, everyone told me you got to eat big to get big,
Yeah.
and I just could not put down food. I would eat what a normal little meal, and I would start getting sick if I ate any more. You know, like most people like eat, and then when you feel sick, eat some more. I'm like, I can't do that.
Well, yeah.
I wish I could.
Yeah, you're saying it's true, because if you're nauseated and you feel like you're going to throw up, you
Right.
can't eat anymore, you will throw up. It's not
Right.
that easy. People try to make it sound like, oh, why doesn't he just eat more? What's wrong with him? You know. But,
Yeah.
cool. So before we go, any people that you want to acknowledge, or any companies, anyone that really helped you out to get to this overall win at the USA?
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously my coach, Shane, definitely did exactly what he said he would do for me, and get me where I am right now. And of course my family, girlfriend, for putting up with me and supporting me. And my gym, Old School Iron.
Ah, it's a real gym.
Yeah, they're out here in Vacaville. They got a few other locations, but it's my favorite by far. It's 2 blocks away from my house, so I don't have to go far. It's a hardcore powerlifting, strongman gym, so it's been fun.
Vacaville. So where are you in the Bay Area? Is that where you are?
Yeah, the Bay Area. Vacaville's like right beside Travis Air Force Base, in between Sacramento and San Francisco. So we're like in the middle of those two.
Okay. Remarkably expensive place to live, the Bay Area, from what I've heard.
Yeah. I'd like to move, especially when I retire.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Okay, well, I wish you the very best. Congratulations again on your win. You know, I always like to hear the stories of the guy that fought and scratched his way to the top, rather than there are people that had a little easier time turning pro. It sort of just happened. But, you know, it didn't just happen for you. You made it happen. And you did it all while serving the United States of America, which you have my gratitude for. Thank you so much for that. And I hope you get your rematch with Lunsford next year at the Olympia. Yeah.
That would be cool.
Cool. All right. So thanks for joining us. I appreciate it so much, Shane. That is all. Thanks, everybody, for watching for the Ronline Report. This has been Shane Stewart, your new USA overall champion.